let's talk Creo 6. Who's using Creo 6? Early adopter award for Ken. Okay? First person who's said on all these sessions so far. Alright, so who's using Creo 5? 4? 3? 2 or earlier? Not using Creo, using another CAD package? You will be allowed to stay in the room, it's okay. Alright, no problems. So, just give me a feel for what everyone's on. So, I guess Creo 6, the latest release, so where we've gone through, Creo 1 back in 2011, okay, when we changed from Wildfire or Pro-Engineer to Creo. So quite a few releases since then. Creo 5 March last year, so Creo 6 was released in March of this year. Okay, so I guess in terms of future looking, subject to change. So the plan is for an annual release cycle. Every March we should be seeing a new release of Creo. So we're looking at Creo 7, as Alan mentioned. We might start to see some of the Frostrum stuff coming into play, maybe a little bit earlier through Creo 6. We'll see what happens there. But basically looking at a March release for new builds of Creo every year. Okay. But let's talk about Creo 6. And with all of these releases, there's been some sort of main design theme or main release themes about Creo. So for Creo 6, the core of productivity improvements, which I'm going to cover a bit in this session and also in another session after the break. We're going to be talking a bit about the added manufacturing. We'll be talking about that in this room, I think. Augmented reality, which Taj is going to do a bit of a deep dive on just after this session. And also, I guess part of the CONVERGE story with ANSYS and PTC joining forces, the live simulation has now become available. Okay, so let's get into some of the productivity improvements. So, as usual, loads and loads of little things all over the place. I'm going to sort of go through these as, I guess, give you the highlights. I do have a little slide at the end of my second sort of deep dive session to talk about where you can find more of this sort of information. Okay, so don't really have to remember everything I show you here. But let's talk about UI and user experience. Okay, so really the big thing with Creo 4 was the introduction of the in-graphics toolbar. Okay, really changed the way that you start to work with the models on the screen. A lot less mouse travel, clicking, all that sort of stuff. Okay, it was a really nice introduction. So again, PTC's been expanding that through Creo 4 and into Creo 5. Okay, so more mini toolbars, in feature creation tools, new options for dimension toolbars, which I'll show you. Okay, the dashboards have had a bit of a tweak. Okay, you'll see this when I show you the demo. Looks pretty similar to existing users, but a little bit laid out differently, make it easier for new users getting on board. Okay, model tree column display. Okay. Some nice new things that I know quite a few people have been waiting for a while for those. I think Ken might agree with that one. Okay. Easier configuration setup of these tools as well. Okay, so we'll have a look at this in the demonstration. Okay. As Creo has been evolving, they've been taking advantage of more of the new graphics card capabilities and things that have been coming into play from the hardware side. So we've had things like auto-independent transparency, anti-aliasing coming into Creo. So a bit more of that increasing, basically making graphics easier to see on the screen, particularly as people move towards 4K screens. So things like making dimensions stand out a lot more easily, edge pre-selection a lot more pronounced, so it's easier to see on the screen. Things like zooming pre-selected for the reference viewer. The charting tool has had a big overhaul, so if you're generating charts out of anywhere Creo simulate results or any kind of analysis tools or things that you're running, you can go and customize, configure that to your heart's content in terms of colors and layout and everything else. Okay, drop that into Excel, drop into a PDF, whatever you might need to do. Okay. Working in assemblies. Okay, so in the model tree, a bunch of changes there just to make it visually more obvious what you're working on. So things like this sort of shading. Coming through on the TV. It's a bit bright, so this is the demo. Okay. How that looks on screen. Okay. So basically dimming the rest of the model tree to focus on the active component. Insert mode's been tweaked a little bit, so now rather than a little arrow, you've got a big line that tells you where you are in the model tree. Just drag that up and down, like you could with the old indicator. On the core modeling side of things, okay, the helical volume sweep, which was introduced back in Creo 5, okay, so that's probably the most numerically complex feature you can build in Creo. So you're basically simulating, running a tool along a helical path to grind out a flute or something like that. So a bunch of back-end performance improvements. You'll see a lot of that through my presentations this morning. Also the option to build a curve from that helical path, so you can use that for downstream in NC or help you drive your tool path. Okay. Some new options for data point creation, new project option or onto the planar surface. And this option, along with a few more that you'll see through today, they're not just in Creo 6, there are options that have been backported to Creo 5 and 4 as well. Okay? So some of you might see these, as long as you're on the right version as listed there. Okay? The extrude depth option, nice new setting there again, which I'll show in the demonstration. Some other bits and pieces, data plane creation where there's multiple options. For the mid plane, how it basically making it easy to pick the one you want to use. New options for constraint icons in Sketcher to help when they're overlapping each other to basically see it a bit more easily. Preserve dimension positions, which is always nice to have when you're generating your sketch and things move around. Drill angles, okay, so we can now configure the default drill tip angle out of the box rather than having to default to always use the default 118. Again, that's been backported. Okay. On the sheet metal side, okay. So again, the graphics toolbar, or the feature toolbar, I should say. Some really nice new options with the flat wall tool, which I'll do in the demonstration. This new option of a corner seam to help you deal with your neighbouring walls. And also dealing with flange walls and some of the options for that, basically cleaning up things on the screen while you're working with that. Okay. The merge walls, depending on how you build your sheet metal parts, that's now been modernised, so we're using the dashboard rather than the old menu manager. And at the back end, a bunch of stuff on improving just the speed of regeneration of sheet metal parts. Okay, so we've got some customers do some pretty big, complicated sheet metal parts with lots and lots of features. So there's been a bunch of stuff done around smart regeneration of those. To look at, if I'm going to change this model, what do I actually need to regenerate versus what can sort of stay as it is, so it comes up faster. Okay, so you should see performance improvements there on complicated sheet metal parts in Creo 6. All right, Freestyle Design. I'll ask the question: who's using Freestyle Design here? Good. Okay. But everyone has been using that. So Freestyle Design was introduced back in Creo 1. So this is the subdivisional surface modeling, nerve-based sub-D surface modeling. So model a block and start pushing and pulling the mesh to get a shape. So great for that sort of free-form geometry. Fantastic for conceptual work. Okay, but we've also had customers who are taking those surfaces into production parts as well, okay, because it ends up just being a normal surface you can use like any other. So in Creo 6, some enhancements here, so the mini toolbar in Freestyle, okay, so you can get access to your commands more easily. In Creo 5, they introduced the ability to have a Freestyle feature having multiple shapes, so you can have multiple blobs and end up joining them together. So inside 6, we can sort of suppress any of those shapes if we decide we don't need them. Also in the Freestyle tree now, if you are aligning that Freestyle shape to existing parametric geometry, we can now see that in the Freestyle tree, our alignments as options there. Okay, performance improvements again, so basically making the whole thing run faster. Okay, 2D and 3D annotation, MVD support. Okay, so on the 2D side, nice new one, which a lot of people I know like. There's a new option on by default. So when you create a new drawing, the drawing will take the name of the model that you add to it. Okay? Alright, so this works in Windchill as well. Okay, so no more having to type in the part number when you create the drawing and getting it wrong and having to rename it later. So that's option on by default. It'll just pull the model name and rename the drawing to that as you go. Okay? A couple of little things. Both of these have been backported into more recent versions of 4 and 5. New options for basically controlling your lever offsets when you're working with G-tiles and basic DIMs. And also, when you're working with tables, just deleting stuff out of a table cell is a lot simpler now. Just pick the cell and hit the delete key and it's gone. No more right-click, delete, those sorts of options. Okay. Who's doing MVD? Yeah, I know Cash appears and Fast Products are both talking about it today. Okay.
Enhancement feature?
Sorry?
Is that an enhancement?
No, that's just the something going on with the room here.
Sure.
Look, see? That's PowerPoint crashing anyway. Oh, there we go. All right. Maybe the camera came loose. Okay. So PTC's been doing MVD for a really long time, back since the wildfire days. We've got more and more customers coming on board and doing MVD, looking to, basically, as Kasia pointed out, eliminate or reduce the amount of drawings you need to do. Okay. So by doing these detailed basically doing all your PMI, your manufacturing information inside the model. Okay, so there's been a lot of stuff right throughout all the Creo releases on MVD. So in Creo 6, the same. There's a lot of stuff in here around creation, and editing of them, how you work with these annotations. New options for supporting of your semantic references, which is very important with MVD. The idea is that if I'm defining a note, a call out that references some geometry to explain to a person this is what this feature is, the whole thing around, well, what surfaces does that describe? Okay, not just the one surface I picked on, but all of the surfaces that make up that feature. Okay, improve parent-child behavior for them. Okay, because you often do your lovely MVD and then someone will come along with the MVD display turned off and suppress a feature and then it doesn't work anymore. Okay, so better handling of that. Okay. Again, options for that. Things like how it handles with excluding them. There's a bunch of options in your config.pro for controlling that default behavior. Okay. On the same thing, options in the model tree for showing what the status of those annotations is, so you can see them at a glance. And also the ability to search for annotations based on their regeneration status as well. Okay. Better propagation of them when you're working with data sharing features like the inheritance feature. Okay. So moving them around between models. Sorry, that was this slide. Okay. And other little things, some default settings. Actually, this was on 2D as well. So things like arrowheads are filled by default. Your surface dots are filled by default. But if you've got your DTL file sorted out, you're probably doing that anyway, right? Okay. And again, the dimension background that I talked about before. Okay, I'll point that out in the demonstration. Okay. Model check. Okay. So there are a bunch of new MVD checks in model check. Okay, this might be of interest to you, Cash. I've seen you using both. So we're doing all this dimensioning in our models. But we want to validate that people are doing things the right way. So there's a whole bunch of new checks in model check to make sure that the MVD is being done basically the way you want it to be done. Okay. Better management of stacked annotations and how they behave. Okay. Lots of stuff in MVD as well. All right. So let's have a look at Creo 6. All right. So let's start up. Alrighty. So here's Creo 6. Looks pretty similar to Creo 4 and 5 and the like. Okay, you can see it's recolored a little bit, so I'm just running the default color scheme. So you can see the dark bar on the top of a few different tabs in the ribbon. Okay. But otherwise it's pretty similar. Alright, so I'll just open up my model here, which I meant to open up before I went off into the other room for the main session, but forgot. Okay, so you can see I'm doing it real rather than just boom, there it is. Alright, so here's my snowmobile. Okay, so let's have a bit of a look at some of the options that are here. Actually, let me just reset my model tree. Okay. Now, so in terms of the model tree and how it behaves, I'm just going to see if this screen seems to be a bit. No, the screen's a bit too bright, unfortunately. You'll have to take my word for it on that. I'm sure Ken can validate this one. So, in Creo 4 and 5 and early versions, that's your activation indicator, right? And obviously the little thing here in the screen. But what we see in Creo 6 now is basically the model tree up there and down there has been grayed out. Okay? It's just that the screen brightness is cranked all the way up to the top on these screens, so you can't see that. All right. Also, I've got my insert here indicator as this line, the drag point. Okay. So as I expand out deeper and deeper into the various parts or models, you can see that insert here indicator. So it's just a matter of dragging that up where I want it to be. Actually, need to activate the part. Okay. Like so, and then dragging that up as I need to do it. Okay. And again, anything below the insert here is being grayed out on the tree. Okay. So it's a little bit more of a clear visual indication, not just on the screen, but in the model tree of where you are and where you're working. Okay. But while we're in the model tree, okay, so one of the options again are tree filters. So out of the box, things like features and suppressed objects is on. Okay. I would imagine that most of you have probably set that up to be on by default, but a lot of companies or customers don't. Okay, so it's, the out of the box setting is kind of more what people want. In terms of the tree columns, okay, so if I want to add, extra columns of information into my display, into my model tree, like maybe my part name, so I'm not just looking at a whole bunch of part numbers. Let's give that a width. Okay. Apply that so I can see all that extra information. But the nice thing now is that we can finally actually explicitly set the first column width. Okay, and it will always remember that. Rather than in Creo 4, that they did some sort of back end stuff on that to make that more give it a bit more smarts. But let's just say it didn't always work. Okay, so in Creo 6 now we can explicitly set that exactly the width we want it to be. Okay.
Double click on the column thing works now too.
Sorry, the
Double click on the column width things works now.
to auto resize?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Without crashing.
Yeah. The other nice one as well is, so when you edit your model tree settings, it's like editing the ribbon, right? It's automatically saved. Okay, I don't have to, because I've talked to a lot of customers over the years where if someone's gone and configured all the model tree, they come out and they come back the next day and they've got it reset back. How do I make that permanent? I'm sure Ben's probably talked to some people in this room on how to do that. He's nodding away. Okay, so now that's just automatically done through your customization.ui. Okay, so that's it. I didn't do anything. That will just automatically be saved. Okay, so while we're here, let's have a bit of a look at some of the other sort of more core features. So let's open up this part. Okay, just in normal part mode. Let's build a feature. Extrude off the top there, and we'll just put a bit of a sketch in here, like so. Okay, and let's have a look at this. Okay, so a few changes here. As I said before, the dashboard has had a bit of a redesign. Okay, so all the information is still there. All the icons are still the same. There's a little bit more sort of text explanation of what these options mean. So as I said, for all of you who are existing users, no real change there. Good for news to help them a little bit better understand what they're looking at. Also, you see inside the dashboard, there are links off to the help online to explain what that feature is. And then from there, you can go into things like e-learning and stuff, which I'll talk about later on. Okay, so a bit of a redesign of the dashboard. Also, the new feature toolbar that I mentioned. So if I just left click on nothing, I get my little feature toolbar here. Okay, so I can change my options here rather than having to go up to the model tree, or sorry, to the dashboard. And don't forget, remember in Creo 5 we introduced full screen mode as well. Okay, anyone ever use full screen mode? Those who are on 5, or yeah, good. Okay, more screen space, everyone loves that. So the idea of adding more of these options here is that you don't have to be going up there for the pop-ups all the time. All right. So I can go here, left click, I can change it to a surface, or I can change it to back to a solid and into a cut. Okay, which I can then drag down inside to cut through the model. All right. Or maybe I can say I want to add taper to it to put a bit of a draft on that. Okay. So I've got those options just there through my left clicks. Okay. So other options that are there as well. If actually, I should point this out. You can see here See how the dimension has a background around it? Okay, so it stands out against the rest of the model. Who's ever had a dimension disappear on them and they can't find it because it's hidden by the model? Yep, good. Okay, everyone who's ever used Creo basically should have put their hand up. All right, so there's this new option there for controlling that. Now you can turn that off if you want to in the view settings. Okay, so if we turn it off and come back, so it's basically like Creo 5 was. Okay, but you can control that as well. So if we turn that back on. So in my options now, I've got under my entity display here, I've got my dimension background. Okay, so I can control that. Defaults to the highest contrast, but if you want, you can manually set the color you want to use and keep it consistent all the way. Okay, so you've got controls over that. All right. Also, you might have noticed as I held my cursor over the dimension, I had a couple more little options pop up on the screen. Okay, so I didn't actually pick it up, I just moved my cursor over. So I've got options now for my depth in there, or also whether I want to make it a second side, two-sided or not. Okay, so I can just toggle them on and off as well. So I've still got my right mouse button menu, it's still there. Okay, if I hold over the drag handle, right click, it's still all that way. And I know plenty of customers who, even with Creo 4, they still go right clicking all the time because that's what you're used to doing after 15 years of it. It's hard to break those habits. But there's a lot more options there now through the UI, through our left click and other options. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So that's a little bit of a look at some of the I guess the core UI elements inside Creo 6. Okay. So what I'm going to do there's more on this later after the break, but what I'm going to do now is hand over to Taju, and Taj is going to do a bit of a deep dive into the Creo AR that was introduced, and some nice new updates that actually happened about 2 weeks ago for all of you guys as customers. Okay.